Welcome to my channel. Casey, that's me, Carry Chug, the Sledge Storyteller, here to talk about the wonderful world of storytelling and to open up discussion about how we can tell the best stories we can. So the story goes, burgeoning scientist Victor Frankenstein becomes obsessed with bringing life back to the dead, and thus creates a monstrous man who from the get-go finds himself ostracized by society only to spur him to strike back, often causing death. But this is a look back behind the story. 5 obscure Frankenstein facts. Number 1. The work of a teenager. Thanks to Kenneth Branagh and his 1994 movie, many people know the name of the Frankenstein author, Mary Shelley. But it's not so well known that she was 18 when she first put that story together in 1816, then published in 1818 when she was 20. Perhaps a prodigy, she had been born of wealthy and politically motivated parents, William Godwin and Mary Wollstonecraft, though she died shortly after giving birth to her. In the luxury of wealth, Mary was privately and richly educated in a way that certainly nurtured her talent for storytelling. Number 2. The product of a writing contest and a dream. As the story goes, in the summer of 1816, author Mary was on a vacation with future husband Percy Shelley and met with friends Lord Byron, Claire Clairmont, and Paul Polidori. Lord Byron, he rented a mansion along the shores of Lake Geneva. The group had read several ghost stories together. Then Lord Byron challenged everyone in the group to write a ghost story that would top the stories that they had just read together. After a few days of writer's block, Mary had a dreadful nightmare that she described in the preface of the 1831 edition of Frankenstein. I saw the pale student of the unhallowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out and then, on the working of some powerful engine, show signs of life and stir with an uneasy half-vital motion. Frightful must it be, for supremely frightful would be the effect of any human endeavor to mock the stupendous mechanism of the creator of the world. Mary Shelley. Now, while I have not been able to find any source that even tries to satisfy my curiosity as to who actually best met the challenge out of the group, though as far as I can tell, the only other story that was published was Polidori's novella, The Vampire. But out of this challenge and nightmare, the novel was, as I mentioned before, published in 1818 and has since become entrenched in the culture of storytelling. Number 3. Might not have happened if not for a volcanic eruption. Only over the past few years have I learned of this event I'm about to talk about, and it could be directly linked to a lot of historical change when it comes to world history. And while I've read several articles on the subject, these images from the USA Today website serve this purpose best. In 1815, the year before the aforementioned historic vacation and gathering, Mount Tambora in what is now Indonesia erupted. How much of an eruption? Looking at this chart, look at the Mount St. Helens sampling of what kind of eruption it was, then Mount Vesuvius, now Mount Tambora. Over 100,000 people in the immediate vicinity died right away, and countless others would die or suffer greatly from the food shortages resulting from eruptions gas filling the air and blocking out the sun and thus keeping crops from growing. It's been frequently referred to as the summer that wasn't. On the smaller stage, Mary, Percy, Claire, Paul, and Byron in that retreat by Lake Geneva naturally dealt with the unfavorable weather as I told before, in that gathering where they were telling stories. You can't help but think it was these string of events, this chaos, that set the author up to come up with her magnum opus. Number 4. The actor most identified with playing Frankenstein's monster only played him twice. There are going to be a few parallels here with my Dracula list from last week. Unlike Bela Lugosi, whose 2 Dracula movies were 16 years apart, Boris Karloff played the part of the monster movie in 1931, then his last appearance in the role of the 1935 follow-up movie The Bride of Frankenstein. 8 years later, Universal cast Bela Lugosi. Wouldn't you know it? We go from Dracula to Frankenstein, but this movie was Frankenstein vs. Wolfman. In the years following, the role went to Lon Chaney, most famous for playing the Wolfman. I mentioned last week he also played Dracula, and wouldn't you know it, he also played the Mummy. Moving on from that trivia overload, the last Frankenstein monster in that classic flat top head design in these old Universal movies, he was played by Glenn Strange. Number 5. Frankenstein may have been inspired by a scientist obsessed with life regeneration. Now, I had just mentioned how Mary Shelley was spurred by a writing contest and a dream, but as a writer myself, I can vouch for the fact that a lot of what goes into writing a story comes from memories going way back that suddenly inspire. Such is the case, apparently, with Mary's previous tours along the Rhine River in Germany in 1814. Nothing can be confirmed from anything recorded as she traveled there, but it feels probable that she stopped by Darmstadt, that city in Germany, along the way, which is overlooked by Castle Frankenstein. Therein was born Johann Conrad Dippel. That was back in the 17th century, but he was a theologian, physician, and alchemist. And after his education at the University of Gießen, much of his work in those disciplines was back in his birthplace, Castle Frankenstein. Much of his work drew support and criticism by those around him, and from his critics came what might be over-embellishments of work on reimplanting life in cadavers, yet all scholars who have taken a close look at his life do agree that at the very least he tried all that experiment on dead animals. Now, nothing can be confirmed again, but there is strong reasoning for speculation given the location and the similarities between the story Dippel and Victor Frankenstein to make it very likely that a visit to Darmstadt, Germany gave Mary Shelley something to build upon during that stormy retreat at Lake Geneva. Number 6. First known film by Thomas Edison. Now, Edison's research team accomplished more than just developing that long-term incandescent light bulb. They also developed the phonograph and helped pioneer the world of motion pictures, even where they would produce several of their own movies. Frankenstein among them in 1910, directed by J. Searle Dawley, with the monster played by actor Charles Ogle. Now, I'll recommend you look up Georges Méliès on YouTube to see the best movie innovations for this time frame, running from the 1890s going into the early 19-teens. And I have to gush over the sheer brilliance of the depiction of this monstrous creation, in which they burned a monster dummy in front of the camera, then reversed the film to show it coming together as if to simulate creation. Now, this was made at a time when there was no such thing as a feature film, hence this is only a 10-minute movie. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you just have the right thing to watch this first ever Frankenstein movie. Number 7. While the Frankenstein story is public domain, the most famous design of Frankenstein's monster, not. Now, the description of the monster in the novel is fairly vague, though contemporary illustrations were rendered. That the novel was already in public domain made licensing a non-issue for the Universal Studios film in 1939. All that makeup applied to actor Boris Karloff that gave him a flat scalp and bolts on his neck that was the design of Hollywood makeup artist Jack Pierce, who did plenty of research into figuring out how to best give the monster that look of someone who had been crafted out of human body parts in a way that made it look like it was just thrown together with little regard for how normal he would look. That distinctive look made it easy to have that design function as Universal's intellectual property. So anytime you see the monster depicted with this look, either Universal was involved or the studio making the depiction got licensing or permission from Universal. K-Row View Studios worked under Universal to show Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster. Same with that Halloween special I mentioned in a previous video, the Halloween that almost wasn't. All other depictions, such as Hammer Films' Frankenstein movie with Christopher Lee as the monster, had to come up with their own design. And they've proven that it doesn't necessarily have to be that design to be a good rendition. That Christopher Lee movie is very good. Number 8. Part of the inspiration for the creation of the Hulk. You don't have to think too hard to find similarities between this monster and the Incredible Hulk. Now, one other key influence was Jekyll and Hyde with the dual personalities, but Stan Lee loved the character angle of Frankenstein's monster. From the bonus features DVD from the 2003 movie Hulk, he said, "It always seemed to me that the monster played by Karloff wasn't really the bad guy. He was the good guy. He didn't want to hurt anybody. It's just those idiots with torches kept running up and down the mountains, chasing him and getting him angry." Now, Stan Lee's words and the origins of Marvel Comics I thought better served that point. Alas, I couldn't find my copy, so I went with a bit on the DVD. And this is but one example of how the classics make the creative world a fertile plain. Number 9. Smarter and more energetic than the Universal movies first depicted. So in the early movies, the monster lumbers about like the motion commonly associated with zombies. But straight from the source, I suddenly beheld the figure, at some distance, advancing toward me with superhuman speed. He bounded over the crevices in the ice, among which I walked with caution. So those were the words by Victor Frankenstein himself, as the monster had relocated him after he had abandoned him. Maybe it was because of the fragility of Karloff's makeup that they didn't have him move around all that much. But here's one factor that further humanizes the monster when you read the novel, that he can actually move like that, and he's not just frozen and barely able to move. Also, one that increases the notion of his formidability against those who threatened him. And, over time, the renditions by Kenneth Branagh as the monster played by Robert De Niro, even the depiction by Randy Quaid in the TNT TV movie, they show him far more mobile, and that was a good step forward as far as good portrayals of this character. Number 10. Like Dracula, the key name is rooted in a real person. Okay, more like real people and a castle. So again, the name Frankenstein is shared with a castle in Germany, and the castle got its name before the family who dwell there. It was originally built by Lord Konrad II Reitz von Breuberg, who decided to give himself the same name and changed his last name to von Frankenstein, and sired a family of succeeding barons. The first documented mention of that castle was in the year 1252. After some time, it became the property of Hesse-Darmstadt, and thanks to Frankenstein as a pop culture icon, it's become a big tourist attraction there. But that's my obscure Frankenstein facts. Something that should be added to that, please let me know in the comment section, or something you think I didn't embellish properly, let me know. But if you like this video, please click like. If you like this channel, please click subscribe or follow me on Instagram. The link to order Sledge number 1 is below the description, or you can order it on Kindle. Sledge number 2, I was just shown the high resolution copy of the last story page, and the same high resolution has to be given to the cover. So I'm excited to see things develop, and hopefully we can get things going that will be published and come out soon. But as always, let's all look for civility amid all the bad news out there about social and political strife, as well as the pandemic. Let's follow the precautions given to us. Let's wear a mask in public. Let's get the vaccination. I promise it will serve its purpose, and you'll be glad you did. But thanks for watching. Everyone be safe, and God bless.